I forgot to bring the grocery money this month. My husband, Ethan, threw a single $50 bill onto the table. $50 for a whole month's worth of groceries for a family of 3, it was laughable. If you want to complain, then go earn some money yourself, Ethan said, his voice icy. I had no response. His cold gaze left me speechless. My name is Lily, I'm 27, and I live with my husband, Ethan, and our daughter, Emma. Ethan and I met in college and started dating. 6 months later, my mother passed away while I was still in elementary school, and I was raised by my father as a single child. People judged me for my background and I never had a fiancé before. I remember my ex-boyfriend saying behind my back, "I'm not marrying a child of a single parent. She probably won't know how to raise kids properly." But Ethan was different. He once told me, "Your father must be an amazing man to have raised someone as wonderful as you." His words brought tears to my eyes. I was convinced Ethan would always support me no matter what. After graduation, we both joined my father's company. 3 years later, Ethan and I decided to marry. My father had always been worried about me growing up in a single-parent household. Although my father wanted Ethan to take over the family business, Ethan's family opposed, so we had to let that go. I became Ethan's wife, moved into his family home, and our married life began. Within 6 months, we had a child. I left my father's company to focus on creating the happy home I had always dreamed of. But that dream quickly began to unravel. One evening, as I served dinner, Ethan snapped, "Are you trying to upset me with this terrible food? Remake it." I was stunned, trying to calm his anger while soothing our crying newborn. "Emma," I said, "I'm sorry, but I ordered it from a diner. You know it's good." "Don't talk back. You didn't cook it yourself. Both your housework and childcare, do them right. Can't you stop taking your anger out on us? Why the hell are you my wife if you can't even cook a decent meal? Useless." Ethan spat the words out before storming off to his room. How did things end up like this? The kind man I once knew seemed to have vanished. Since Emma was born, Ethan's demeanor had shifted. He grew irritable over the smallest things, belittling me with comments like, "You can't even earn money, useless," or, "Can't handle being a stay-at-home wife." Women from single-parent families are, and if anything upset him, his temper flared. When I asked about his work, he'd ignore me, appearing either exhausted or preoccupied. Ethan was the one who insisted I stay at home to support the family, which is why I left my father's company in the first place. Ethan often had a harsh attitude, as if belittling me made him feel better. Despite my disgust with his behavior, I couldn't bring myself to leave him for Emma's sake. Given my own experience as a single parent, Ethan seemed to be thriving at work. He'd frequently call my father for advice amidst his busy schedule. Yet, every time I looked at a childhood photo of me and my mother, I'd think, I wish I could ask Mom for help. After 3 years of living this way, I almost forgot the grocery money for the month. Ethan slammed a single $50 bill down in front of me. Feeding a family of 3 with $50 a month, it was impossible. What had happened to our finances? Managing with what's given is the job of a stay-at-home wife, isn't it? Since you're always home, you should be able to figure something out, he said. That's not feasible. Let me handle our expenses, I pleaded. I can't. I have numerous gatherings to attend. Practically, it's only for you and Emma, so $50 should be enough, he replied dismissively before leaving the room. I couldn't help but think of Ethan's past praise. "You're such a wonderful woman. Your dad must be an admirable person for raising you." Where had the kind Ethan gone? Was this harsh version of him the real one? I often thought about leaving, but the thought of Emma growing up without both parents held me back. The challenges of raising a child alone were overwhelming. I wished my mom were still alive. Though I considered divorce several times, the thought of burdening Emma with a single parent outweighed my fears, and I couldn't muster the courage to leave. That didn't mean I simply accepted the situation. I repeatedly asked Ethan to increase the food budget and secretly searched for work-from-home opportunities. Still, $50 a month was far from sufficient for decent meals. I had been dipping into my savings from before our marriage to cover the shortfall, but my funds were running out. Ensuring Emma had nutritious meals was a priority, but the strain of such extreme frugality was taking its toll on me. My health was deteriorating, and I worried about who would care for Emma if I collapsed. Maybe I should ask my dad for help. So, I decided to call my father. After our discussion, Whether from relief or exhaustion, I fell into a deep sleep on the sofa. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was Emma's peaceful sleeping face. Tears were clearly visible in my father's eyes. "Grandpa, Mommy's awake," Emma said softly. "Really? That's a relief," my father replied, his voice shaky. He peeked into the room with a tear-streaked face. I stared at him in confusion, trying to process what was happening. "Lily, we were so worried about you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Dad, where are we?" "We're in a hospital. Your collapse was due to malnutrition." "I can't believe this happened," he said, struggling to hold back tears. He might have been crying the entire time I was asleep. My father has always been quite emotional. "I'm sorry for causing you such worry, but why are you here? What about work? Don't you remember, you called me for help when I returned your call and Emma answered. She told me you had collapsed. That's why I rushed over and called for an ambulance." As he spoke, my father gently stroked Emma's head. "Thank you. We were saved because you told Grandpa." "I'm glad Mommy is okay," Emma said, her smile brightening the room. "I never imagined she'd grow up to be so strong. Perhaps she saw me as a lesson on what not to do." Lost in thought as I gazed at Emma, my father's voice broke through my reverie. "What happened to you, Lily? You've become so thin. Have you not been eating properly?" I tried to brush off his concern, but the seriousness in his eyes made me open up. I began to tell him about my life with Ethan. "So Ethan did this to you?" he asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Yes," I admitted. "Why didn't you tell me anything?" "I didn't want to hurt you, Father. You were so happy when I married Ethan, and I didn't want to let you down." As I spoke, tears streamed down my face, and my father took my hand, trembling with emotion. "Lily, it hurts me more to know that you felt you couldn't tell me." Hearing those words, I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. "Father, I'm so sorry." "There's no need to apologize. I'm always on your side. No matter what, you can talk to me about anything." "Yes, I know," I said, feeling a mix of relief. What had I been enduring all this time? If only I had confided in my father sooner, Emma and I might have avoided so much hardship. I realized that in my attempt to shield Emma and my father from worry, I had lost sight of what truly mattered. Emma couldn't possibly be happy growing up in a home filled with conflict and devoid of joy. Noticing the change in my expression, my father said he needed to make a phone call and left the room. After a while, he returned, and we spoke for an hour before Ethan arrived at the hospital. "Don't call my office for trivial matters," Ethan barked as he entered, clearly irritated, but his tone softened when he saw my father. "Oh, father-in-law." My father, usually calm, was unruffled by Ethan's rudeness, a side of Ethan he had never witnessed at work. "This is a hospital. Don't you think your loud voice might disturb the other patients?" my father said, keeping his composure. "But Lily told my receptionist she was hospitalized due to malnutrition." "Yes, I made that call. Any problem with that?" "Oh, it was you who made that call. Because of what you said, I got some pretty strange looks from my colleagues. It was quite embarrassing." "Come on now, Dad." "Embarrassed? Huh? Being embarrassed is a lot better than being mistreated by your own husband, don't you think?" Ethan, already agitated, grew even more furious. "Lily, what are you rambling about? This is a family matter." Emma trembled as my father gently cradled her in his arms. Ethan seemed oblivious to her presence, his focus solely on me. Despite Ethan's anger, an unexpected calmness settled over me. Perhaps it was my father's comforting presence or Emma's reassuring proximity. I found myself confronting Ethan with a newfound courage. "What? Are you going to hit me?" "Hey, look at you, acting all high and mighty," Ethan retorted, clearly irate. As I prepared to respond, my father intervened with a gentle but firm hand on my shoulder. "Ethan, before you raise your voice at my daughter, don't you have something to say to me?" Ethan looked puzzled but seethed with anger. "What's that supposed to mean?" My father maintained his composure. "You're supposed to be earning a decent salary, yet you're not even providing for your own daughter. What are you spending your money on?" Ethan fell silent. "But why are you angry?" my father continued calmly. "This is just a matter of discipline. More importantly, when will the CEO position be available? I'm ready to step in." Ethan was taken aback. "Ah." My father's expression shifted to one of disbelief at Ethan's audacious claim. Why are you surprised? As the husband of the CEO's daughter, isn't it normal that I should take over the company? With someone as capable as me as CEO, the business would surely thrive. Don't you think I should be given the position immediately? Ethan's absurdity left my father speechless. Seeing his shock, I stepped forward and told Ethan, if someone like you becomes CEO, the company will go bankrupt. What did you say? Ethan snapped. As Ethan attempted to raise his hand against me, my father quickly seized his arm. You're fired, my father said firmly. Huh? Didn't you hear me? I said you're fired. With an employee like you, the company will fail, and you think I should just hand over the CEO position? You must be dreaming. Ethan, stunned and unable to respond, stood there with his mouth agape. I delivered the final blow. Let's get a divorce. I no longer want to be with you. It's not good for Emma to be around you, and I don't want to trouble my father any further. At the mention of divorce, Ethan's eyes widened. Wait a minute, if I can't become CEO, what was the point of marrying you? What? Your only worth is being the daughter of a CEO? I was stunned by his words. I had thought he had changed, but it seemed he had been like this all along. Just then, my father opened the door and said, please come in. Ethan's parents walked into the room. Mom and Dad too. Why are you here? Ethan's panic was palpable as his parents knelt before me. I told them, it's not your fault. Please, stand up. I had Ethan's parents sit down, and Ethan, his face flushed with embarrassment, began to receive a lecture. We came as soon as we got the call, his father said, his voice trembling. We overheard everything outside. What are you doing to your wife and child? We're disowning you. What? Ethan was taken aback. Emma then handed the divorce papers to my mother-in-law. Here you go. It seemed she had known I had them all along. What's this? How convenient, my mother-in-law said, accepting the papers and promptly signing and stamping them before leaving with Ethan. Please go through with the divorce. For alimony and child support, don't worry about it, we'll ensure he pays. A few days later, I signed and stamped the divorce papers without hesitation and went to the city hall with my father and Emma to submit them. We also arranged discussions about alimony and child support through a lawyer recommended by my in-laws. Throughout this process, Ethan maintained a surprisingly mature demeanor. It was agreed that Ethan would pay alimony and child support in a lump sum from his savings. Well then, goodbye, take care, I said as I left the lawyer's office. A year has passed since then. I'm now working part-time at my father's company. You're more competent than that man, Lily. Having you here is a great help. My father often says, to balance work and spending time with Emma, I work only during daycare hours. My efficiency with accounting calculations has led to light-hearted jokes around the office that I might be the next CEO. Emma is thriving, and every time my father makes a proud comment, I respond with a smile. But then I'd have less time with my daughter, wouldn't I? Recently, I met with Theo, the son of one of our clients and a close friend of my father. Theo, a kind and respectful man, said, if my son ever causes any trouble, let me know. I'll make sure you're protected. I'm considering marrying Theo. I haven't heard much about Ethan since then, but Emma enjoys a close relationship with my in-laws, who have been gracious enough to avoid mentioning him. I feel truly blessed by the support around me, and I'm deeply grateful to my father for raising me with such dedication. I even feel like the picture of my mother in the room is smiling down on us. From now on, I plan to cherish my family and live happily with Emma. Mama, can I have seconds? Emma asked with a smile. Of course, baby, you're eating so well, I replied, watching her happily dig into her food. I vow today that I will never let her suffer again. That's my promise.